Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program, some updates and promising practices. My name is Ryan Gelman, and I am the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy at the National Community Action Partnership. I'm joined here by some folks from OCS, as well as a couple of agencies that we're very excited to hear from today about their strategies in implementing this water assistance program. So just a couple of quick things at the top. If you're just joining us, please feel free to put your organization and where you're joining us from in the chat. This webinar is being recorded and the slides will be sent to everyone who registered, and they will also be posted on the NCAP website once the webinar is done. We're going to hold questions until the end, but please put your questions into the chat during the webinar. My colleague, Terry Bearden, also from the National Partnership, is on, and she'll be monitoring the chat as well. As many folks probably know, the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program was appropriated little over $1.1 billion in 2021 in a couple of different bills, and community action agencies have been instrumental in implementing that program throughout the country. As community action, we believe that access to clean drinking and wastewater services is a human right. And community action agencies are experts in a lot of the issues that have been important in implementing this program, like they're experts in LIHWAP, as well as forming community partnerships and understanding community needs, especially the differences in community needs, which has been really important just because of the patchwork of water providers within and around many service areas. So today we're going to hear from the Office of Community Services, who will share some updates and amazing resources they've released related to LIHWAP. And then we'll hear a couple of examples of best practices from two community action agencies, Community Action Partnership of Riverside County in California, as well as Total Community Action, Inc. in New Orleans. And then, like I said earlier, we'll leave time for some questions. And the recording and slides will be available after the webinar. And with that, I will turn it over to Christina Clark and Rachel Hammond from OCS.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Clark, and I'm the Operations Branch Chief for the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program. I want to start by thanking you so much for joining us today. It's my pleasure to connect with you. And Rachel, yeah, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Just to give a little bit of background, as Ryan mentioned, LIHWAP was funded at $1.1 billion, and it's authorized through September of 2023. LIHWAP was established as an emergency program in response to the COVID pandemic. And so the priorities that were set were: one, reconnecting households that were disconnected; two, preventing disconnection for households with arrearages; and three, rate reduction or bill payment of current bills for households that need support with affordability. In addition to LIHWAP providing us with an opportunity to serve households, it's also provided us with an opportunity to learn about water and wastewater services across the country. And so I want to share some of the things that I've learned with you in regards to LIHWAP as we kick this conversation off. And one, the first thing that I learned is that water rates are among the fastest rising rates for utilities across the country. They're rising faster than gas and other utilities, just as water becomes more scarce, and then the infrastructure that provides water to the households are aging. And so I'm requiring additional funds and investments in order to maintain those systems. In many places across the country, the water rates are not high enough to be sustainable. And so the water utilities and the companies that are managing the systems aren't charging sufficient funds to maintain systems that are ending near their useful life, as they were installed up to 70 years or so ago. And so the rates now are rising in order to cover the costs for maintaining the infrastructure. And so this has resulted in the need for ongoing support for affordability. And what we've seen through LIHWAP is that this program that was established as an emergency program to ensure that the arrearages that were accumulated during the COVID pandemic could be covered now is shifting towards rate reduction and towards affordability in order to sustain households that are struggling to cover the rising costs for water. And so we can go to the next slide. So currently there are 152 grant recipients that are implementing LIHWAP. That includes states, territories, and tribes. During the first year of implementation, which covers October 1st of 2021 through September 30th of 2022, we learned that LIHWAP was able to serve 411,000 plus households. There have been 13,000 agreements made with water utility providers, and 45% of the funds have been drawn down. What we know, in addition to those 152 grant recipients, is that there are hundreds more local agencies that are really supporting the administration of LIHWAP. And so the opportunity to connect with you all today is really invaluable. And I look forward to the questions and comments that you share with us at the end of this presentation. I know that you all are the ones that are on the ground in many cases, collecting household applications, ensuring that the households are aware of the program. And so the accomplishments that we've made in the first year of this program are really through the dedication and support that you all provided for this program. And I cannot thank you enough for your partnership. Next slide, please. So right now where we're at with the program is there's just about 5 months left to obligate funding. And if you take a look at some of the dates highlighted on the slide, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about what these dates mean. And so the program is authorized for obligation through September 30th of 2023. And that means that all funds have to be obligated not only on behalf of the state recipients, but that obligation deadline also applies to subrecipients or the local agencies that are implementing the program. So that obligation really just means that the last day to process household applications is September 30th. That's the last date that you can enroll and make an obligation on behalf of an eligible household to receive LIHWAP benefit funds. Between September 30th and December 31st is what we would call the liquidation period. And so during that time frame, there is an opportunity to commit those funds, to make payments on behalf of households that were enrolled, and to close out any funding obligations. So all funds for the program should be liquidated or drawn down, expenditures complete by September 31st of 2023. And then for 2024 and beyond, what we'll be working on is the final reports, which are due January 31st. And we receive a question all the time about the future of LIHWAP. And so currently LIHWAP has not received a permanent authorization. We won't know what the future of LIHWAP is or if there'll be additional funding until the president's budget for fiscal year 2024 is released. In the meantime, our priorities for the program are really to maximize the opportunity that we have with this funding. We want to make sure as much as possible that not a single dollar is returned to Treasury. We know that there's a great need for benefits, and we know that costs for water utilities are rising. And so really, any delays, what we've learned have to do with the capacity or with the staffing and the ability to stand up this program. And so what we want to ensure is that we are providing the maximum support to make sure that all the funding is obligated. And we want to make sure that we're capturing the story and the impact of LIHWAP. So that just is a note to encourage you all as you're serving households, and if you're collecting any of those impact stories, really to kind of share those with us if possible. And then on our end, we want to be transparent about what LIHWAP has been able to accomplish. And so we've got the data dashboard that Rachel will talk about in a little bit, but we want to make sure that the folks who are advocating for this program, the folks that are implementing the program, have information accessible to really share the impact and share information about the impacts on the ground. Next slide, please. So in support of ensuring that we are able to maximize the program and draw down and ensure all the funds are drawn down, OCS has really prioritized and initiated individualized training and technical assistance. We're doing this one-on-one assistance with grant recipients and learning best practices and making sure we're sharing best practices to enable grant recipients to draw down the funding. And so I do want to share some of the best practices that we've learned. And so the first is that across the board, we are encouraging some grantees to increase the maximum benefit. When LIHWAP was first initiated, as I mentioned, this was a learning process. And so there wasn't a lot of certainty about what the rates would be for water utility assistance or how much the maximum benefit should be. And in some cases, they were set conservatively. And so as we look at ways to promote spend down, we are encouraging some grant recipients to go back and increase the maximum benefit amount. We want to make sure that for delinquent bills or for bills that have accumulated arrearages, that the full amount can be paid off so that those households are left with zero balances. And we've gotten questions about how high can those arrearages be, how high can the arrearages be covered? I know that we've received word from some states that have paid arrearages of $14,000 or more. And so I just want to share that to encourage you all to look at ways to be able to pay balances down to zero. And what that means in some cases is the maximum benefit doesn't have to be that high, but having a process in place to review and consider bills that do exceed the maximum benefit. In addition to that, adding rate reduction. And so the priority in the beginning was ensuring that households have connection and that those past due bills are paid. What we've learned is that affordability is an ongoing concern. And so rate reduction or payments for current bills is another one of the promising practices that we're encouraging grant recipients to include in their programs. And so we're talking about, including those in eligibility and letting households that are current receive benefit payments as well. In addition to that, issuing supplemental payments. And so when some grant recipients have set those policies in the beginning and then they've changed or expanded it so that rate reduction is included or so that the maximum benefit has been increased, encouraging them to go back to those households to ensure that they're getting the maximum benefit possible and issuing supplemental payments to those households that may be eligible for additional benefits based on changing policies. Another one that we've talked about is allowing credits on beneficiary accounts. And so what this might look like is, for example, we've learned that in some areas, water utility payments are fairly low. We might have areas where bills may be $30 or somewhere around there. And so in order to ensure that those households are able to receive a good share of benefit assistance and that it's sustainable for them, we are allowing grant recipients to approve them for a maximum benefit. Say it's $150 and the bill is only $30. They can still receive that $150 payment in the form of a credit on the account that would last for multiple months until that credit is exhausted. And that really is a way to ensure that households that are current can still access benefits in a way that's sustainable, particularly if their bills are very low. Another best practice that we've discussed with grant recipients is data matching. And data matching with utilities can look like coordinating with your water utility and having them share accounts that are past due or accounts that are pending disconnection. And so you can take that information and target outreach to those households, also match them with categorical eligibility. So if they've received LIHWAP or LIHWAP, a simplified application can be sent to those households. Really, they're just verifying that this is their utility account. Or simple measures where the data matching has already provided a lot of information to complete the required information to process their benefit or even to target outreach. Another way that data matching can be useful is data matching between programs. And I've talked with a grant recipient that has a spreadsheet that was really cool, just a pivot table spreadsheet where they are using information from SNAP or TANF, and they're data matching that with households that have applied for LIHWAP and using that to complete incomplete applications. Sometimes applications can be a barrier for households that have a lot on their plate. And so data matching is also another way to kind of support them in accessing the benefits. I do want to put a plug in for a webinar that we're having next week for data matching, and that'll be an opportunity to hear grant recipients that are implementing innovative ideas and approaches to using data matching, and we'll share the link to that in the chat with you all in case you're interested in joining that session. The last thing that I want to share in regards to promising practices is utilizing flexibilities for LIHWAP, and we've implemented flexibilities around septic systems and bottled water. And so with septic systems, the state is able to enter into an agreement with a service provider that provides removal of waste from septic systems, making the payment directly to that service provider so that the households with septic systems can access benefits for waste removal that way. And then bottled water flexibilities allow access to bottled water for households that, due to emergency situations or situations where they cannot access safe and healthy, clean drinking water, the grant recipient can provide bottled water for those households and use the benefits to cover the cost for bottled water so that those households can have safe drinking water. Next slide, please. All right. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Rachel Hammond.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rachel Hammond. I'm a program specialist on the OCS team. I work with Region 9, so hello to anyone joining us from the West Coast. The next thing we wanted to share with you all were some recent outreach toolkits that we released that can help both with reaching out to households who might be eligible for LIHWAP, but also to water service providers and utilities who may not already be participating in LIHWAP. As Christina mentioned, we are doing a lot of work just to spread awareness of the program. And these toolkits contain one-pagers that you can share out, social media posts. So we already have images created for Instagram or Facebook or Twitter with recommended captions. So that work has already been done for you. We also have some templates for bill inserts that utilities can put in to the bill that they send a household explaining LIHWAP so that they have that when they open their bill, they can also see how they can apply for assistance. We will put that link in the chat. And again, this PowerPoint will be shared with all of you so you can have this link here that you can go back and look at it. But there is some really great work that people did on our team, and we hope this will ease some of your outreach work so that you already have these materials provided for you. The next way that we are sharing about what our program is doing and the great work that you all are doing at local level is through our data dashboard. This is where we publish information that we receive from our grant recipients in their quarterly and annual reports. Right now, we have information through the end of fiscal year 22 and those annual reports that we received. That's how we're able to share that we've served over 400,000 households across the country. Some really special stats that we were able to pull out from that is over half of those households are at or below 75% of the federal poverty line. And I think that really speaks to how this program is targeting those with the lowest incomes across the country and targeting those who probably have some of the highest water burdens in terms of what portion of their monthly income goes towards their water utility bill. We're also going to be adding some additional data that we received in the annual reports to the dashboard regarding the race, ethnicity, and housing status of households that were assisted through LIHWAP. And we are also working on getting the first quarter reports from fiscal year 23 added to the dashboard as well. So we encourage you to go check that out. You can look at it at the state level and at the tribal and territory level. And if you want to know how things are going outside of just your local community agency, this is a great way to see it. And then finally, I want to share that, again, using this data, we released a series of one-pagers last month. We have a national one-pager that shows LIHWAP's impact across the country through fiscal year 2022. But we also created one-pagers for states that had served more than 3,000 households during the fiscal year. So if you want a one-pager with just your state's data that you can share out to stakeholders or with your communities, again, we have this link that you can have through the PowerPoint. And it's really awesome to see the impact that this program is having across the country. And again, we just want to continue to call you all in. We know that you are the legs on the ground doing so much of the hard work that it takes to stand up a new program, reach out to households, process their applications, and get them the assistance they need. So we want to thank you. We want to continue to partner with you. I will share that we have a federal landing page. If you type in waterhelp.info, if a household goes there, they can enter in their zip code and we'll tell them which local agency they can apply to for assistance. And so we hope that that is a helpful way to continue to direct households to you and the work that you all are doing. We continue to try to outreach to water service providers and again, ask for your assistance in that, and hopefully the toolkits that we've provided can assist in that effort. And then we really want to hear from you. You know what it's been like to implement this program. Please tell the state that you're in, please tell OCS what resources would help you continue to do the work that you've been doing. We want to help you all be as successful as possible because again, we so appreciate the work you're doing. We know that this program would not be successful without you all. And we do have a slide with our email addresses, so please feel free to email us at any time and just let us know about your experiences and what might be helpful with this program. Finally, we just want to share that we are currently doing a reallotment of some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So LIHWAP was funded about 50% from the American Rescue Plan Act and 50% from the Consolidated Appropriations Act. We heard from some grant recipients that they were not going to be able to send down all of their funds by the September 30th deadline of this year, and they voluntarily gave some of their American Rescue Plan Act funds back to us. We are currently working on reallocating those funds, about $16 million, out to states, tribes, and territories that have a need for additional funding. They had to meet 3 criteria. They need to have expended 75% of their funds by March 1st. They had to have projected a full expenditure of funds by September 30th and indicated that they do have a need for additional funds. And you can see on the right side, the 8 states and territories that will be receiving additional funding. This was an optional process. People opted in to receive or give back funds. And we are really hoping this will help continue our efforts to make sure that every dollar reaches a family in need for this program. Our last slide is just a link, a list of resources with links to some of the things we have mentioned throughout this presentation. So again, when you receive this in your email, you can click through, look at our website, look at the toolkits, look at the data dashboard. And these are our email addresses. Please do not be shy or hesitate to reach out. And now I will pass it back to Ryan to introduce our next speaker.
Great. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Rachel. So much amazing information. So now we're going to turn to Community Action Partnership of Riverside County in California, and they're going to share some best practices. So I'm going to turn it now to Monica Santana.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Monica Santana, and I am from CAP Riverside. And if Rachel, sorry, can you go to the next slide, please? Riverside County is located in Southern California. We are one of the larger counties in California. And I think according to Wikipedia, we're about the 10th largest in the country. We do serve over 2.5 million residents. And we are roughly a rectangular shape, but we stretch all the way to the Arizona border. And we have seen a huge increase in our population lately because of the cost of living in all the coastal cities. As you can see on the map, we're next to Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego. So we have a lot of transplants due to being pushed out from housing prices that have come to Riverside County. And so we see a lot of families in need for both LIHWAP, LIHWAP, and our other community action services. We are currently trending on social media because the Coachella Music Festival is located in Riverside County. So I'm sure many of you have seen posts, but also I want to give a shout out to the hardworking farm workers that are in Coachella Valley on a day-to-day basis and not just during music festivals. But we do see a huge influx to our county and noticeability of our county during these next couple of weeks during Coachella and coming up right after Coachella is Stagecoach. So that's one of our things that we're known for. Next slide, please. In California, we started LIHWAP in June 2022. So we got a little bit of a later start than a lot of the other states, but we still have the same deadline. So we had to kind of make sure that we're trying to get everything on board and up and running as quickly as possible. One of those early challenges, some of those early challenges that we did see is building a strong relationship with some of our water stakeholders. We were able to establish some of this early on with the CARES funding that we received on the CSBG side, but we definitely didn't have a strong relationship like compared to our electric and gas companies. So trying to get the right point of contacts with each agency was kind of the most tricky part. And we have a third-party payee system in California. So some of that information that was going directly to the water systems, us at the ground level didn't get that same information. So just trying to make sure everybody was on the same page and knew what was expected of each other were some of the early things that we just had to iron out. And also just streamlining operations. And if we go to the next slide, I'll go into more detail. So, of course, one of the main things is making sure that we are able to coincide LIHWAP and LIHEAP as much as possible. So we try to build off that LIHEAP experience and build a pledge system with our water companies and explain that process and kind of use that good name that we've had already established with our electric and gas companies of making good on our promise to pay and implement that with the water companies as well. And we try to make it easier for our customers by making it one application, one checklist. Everything can get done at the same time instead of having the customers come back and forth or provide different documentation at different points in time. And this is just an example of one of the flyers that we use when we try to go out to the community. This one just has our office location, but we try to meet the customers where they're at as much as possible. Senior centers, community centers, clinics, schools, wherever we can. And we provide this flyer to kind of give them an update on, a heads up, so to speak, on the documentation that they'll have to bring. Next slide. I'm sure most agencies have the issue of the fact that a lot of grants like LIHWAP is temporary. So we have the issue of trying to locate temporary staff or trying to keep the staff on board. And what we've done at Community Action in Riverside is we've established a really close relationship with our, in California, TANF is called CalWorks, with our CalWorks office, and where we have more than a third of our workforce comes from this program, including our permanent staff. A lot of them have come in on a temporary basis, and then we keep them on permanently. And this really helps with the temporary nature of the grants where these programs, these job programs are already set up to be temporary. So you don't have to worry about maybe unemployment insurance or having to lay anybody off, because that is already foregone in all these different programs. Pre-pandemic, we used senior employment programs through the Office on Aging a lot, but during the pandemic, for the safety of the seniors, they kind of pulled back a little bit, but I think they're getting, in some states or some regions, you might be able to still access that as a program. And then we work closely with our workforce and unemployment offices as well. And we have some universities locally in our county, so we try to recruit work study or interns as well. And we haven't done this yet, but I'm sure other community actions have, and we are definitely looking in the future to try to incorporate AmeriCorps as well to help with the temporary workforce. Next slide. Leveraging water system enrollment. Some agencies might still be trying to reach out to their water systems and get them enrolled into the LIHWAP program. These are just some of the different information that we use to help us, but by far, the most successful one has been using denied water customers. If their water company wasn't enrolled in our LIHWAP program, the denied customers would be the first ones to go to their water agency and demand that they sign up. And they would say, look, I have this $2,000 bill that I can have paid if you actually sign up for the program. So that is, the customers themselves have been our best advocates on getting, especially some of our rural systems that were a little bit leery of another government program coming in, or making sure that we're not going to give them their short staff a lot of paperwork to fill out. The customers themselves that were getting turned away were the biggest advocates in getting the agencies to actually call us back, respond to our emails, and learn that this program wasn't going to be an overburden on their staff, and that we really are just trying to help the customers. So, and some of the other, just some of the other ones that we can leverage. We are a public cap, so existing relationships with the elected officials was really key in getting the water systems up. But if you are not a public cap, I would suggest, any existing relationships you have with elected officials, maybe your possible board members. It is kind of a political system when it comes to water companies, because a lot of them have a water board that also involve a lot of politicians on their board. So there's a lot of communication at that higher level. And they want access to the benefit amounts that all the electric companies have already been receiving for years. So, next slide. With the water systems, we found that a lot of the communication was happening at the higher level. So general managers, CEOs, and the ones on the ground that we had to communicate with the most were not getting that information. So we had to establish clear points of contact for each agency, ones that we can go to ask for the balance confirmation, the ones that we can send our pledges to. And we even found that some of the emails, because of technology, they would automatically go to their spam, or the protection of trying to put attachments to the email wouldn't make it through to the water systems. So just trying to make sure you have the right point of contacts for every line, for balance confirmations, for pledges, for messaging, any updates or changes to the contract. You always want to make sure you're getting to the right people. And again, what I mentioned in the other slide was easing their fears about the reporting requirements. They had a huge fear up front that we were going to ask them to do pages and pages of federal reporting. And that's why they would automatically say no at first, because they were experiencing a lot of the same staffing issues that many of us have been feeling. And they were afraid that they were not going to be able to take this on. And one thing that we found along the way is that water systems, at least in our area, and I'm sure you all have experienced it too, is that they're pretty competitive with each other. We get invited a lot to do on-site application assistance because they say, oh, the other water system in the other city is getting all the benefits, or they have all their applications, they're getting all the applications to you. We want to get some of that money as well. And they will ask for updates, like who's getting more and how many applicants did they receive. And that's been a really good motivator to get some more people involved in helping us with the outreach. Next slide. One of the things we've had to learn as well is learning the language of the water systems. We're all pretty well versed in electric and gas, but understanding that each water system is very different and they use different language. This is just an example, 2 different companies that we had to learn to ask for things that their staff would understand. Especially because we have a lot of companies that have combined bills, electric, water, sewer, trash is all combined. So we needed to be able to have a mechanism to separate out the water or the sewer charges. And so one company uses account summary, one uses account breakdown, and sometimes a simple change of the word summary or breakdown could make a huge difference. And I'll go into an example on the other slide. We found this one out the hard way. This is the same company, and half of the staff was giving us this total charges layout, and then the other half was giving us current balances. And so we found issues of overpayment or underpayment, and then by being on the same page and working with the right people and doing the teams and sharing screens of like, this is what we got, this is what they're seeing on there. And we were able to figure out that we were being sent different documents, and that causes errors in our payment that we had to adjust. So then we were able to make sure that everybody was sending us the current balance and not the total charges, because that can change the whole dynamic of what we're supposed to be paying. So just making sure that you have that type of relationship and communication with each water district. I know it's very time consuming and it can be a lot, but it can make a huge difference in quality control, quality review later on, and prevent a lot of either over or under payments. Next slide. And for us in California, at least, especially in Southern California, waste is always equated to Waste Management, which is our biggest trash company here. And so we have gotten tons of customers bring us their trash bills and say, well, your flyer says waste. So we had to make sure all of our messaging was very clear, that we were talking about sewer and not waste. We couldn't use the word wastewater because that would cause a lot of confusion. So just making sure that we're meeting the customers where they're at, making sure they understand what it is that we're asking of them, and so that they don't come to our location upset that they brought their waste management and trash bill versus their sewer or their water bill. Our biggest outreach by far has been with the water systems themselves. We have gotten a lot of referrals from their customer service offices. A lot of the customers call the water systems directly, letting them know that they can't make payments, and they will automatically direct them to our website, to our office location. And we have some where we do regular on-site application assistance, and they let their customers know when we will be there. They also provide the customers' applications for LIHWAP at the payment offices, and also flyers in the mailers of all the bills that go out. This has been by far the most successful way to reach the water customers, besides integrating with our existing LIHWAP customers. And I'm sure all of you have been noticing that there's a huge still aftermath after the pandemic. We are having a lot of customers with really large bills. families that go into payment arrangements, but they're not able to keep up with those payments. So they receive disconnection notices. They might try to scrap together whatever they can to make that one payment, but then the next month they get another disconnection notice because they can't keep up with those payments. We have an increased number of customers who have been shut off prior to applying, and they're coming to us being disconnected for long periods of time. Before, we used to see maybe they were disconnected for a couple of days until they found out about us, but now we're seeing increased numbers of weeks, maybe even months of people being disconnected. We have a lot of first-time customers that have never used CAP services before, and we have to educate them on how the payment system works, that it's one time versus a reoccurring credit. And we're trying to do a lot of retraining because we don't have all that ARPA and all those the care money that we had before. So we can't pay all the larger bills. We can't pay multiple bills. And this is, taking a lot of work with our frontline staff to try to re-educate the customers, because we obviously get a lot of complaints due to customers being denied, or the fact that we have to ask them to choose between gas and electric, and then water. We can't pay multiple times, or sometimes we can't pay the entire bill, because we have seen lots of those $10,000, $7,000 bills. And we are here to share any ideas, support. We are just very excited that this program exists, and we hope that it can continue because we definitely see the need, and whatever community action Riverside can do to help support that, we are open for communication and contact. Thank you.
Awesome, Monica, thank you so much. That was amazing. So now finally, we're going to hand over to Thelma French, Glenna Scott, and Lily Rodriguez from Total Community Action in New Orleans. I think you guys might be muted.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Thelma French, President and CEO of Total Community Action, and I'm happy here to be joined by
Mr. Glenna Scott, Vice President of Programs, former Director of Community Energy Services.
Lily Rodriguez, Customer Service Specialist and Water Advocate.
All right, and we'd like to talk about our LIHWAP experiences. Next slide, please. Okay, we begin always with our mission. Our mission is to reduce poverty in our community through collaboration with other agencies and providing human services, experiences, and opportunities that assist individuals with low incomes to achieve economic security. The next slide is about our community. Most people know New Orleans for jazz, Mardi Gras, and fun, but we'd like to talk a little bit about the demographics of our community. Our current population is 383,997 people. I think the most important thing is I'd like to talk from this slide is that our current poverty rate is 23.8%, which is unacceptable. Moving on to the next slide. We want to talk about the water need in our community. A recent report by the Inspector General of the City of New Orleans estimated that our water provider, which is a public water provider, we are fortunate in one way, and we only have one water provider, has a $150 million unpaid bill debt. And according to our water provider, Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans, $60 million is 0 to 60 days old. 88 million is bad debt, which is broken down into the two categories you have in front of you. 57 million past due by more than 60 days, and 31 million coming from closed accounts. So there was a great need for the sustainability of our water system. LIHWAP stepped in just at the right time. And a lot of this bad debt, I would not want to misstating, goes back to Hurricane Katrina. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So TCA and the Sewage and Water Board have had a long-standing partnership. In 1996, and when I have the privilege of saying I was a board member and not the CEO, we initiated a water health program. Regrettably, the program has not grown since 1996. It's still a $200 one-time assistance to low-income elderly and disabled residents. I put up some data that showed the limits of the water health program. And in 2022, the assistance went down because of LIHWAP. We were able to serve more individuals with LIHWAP than we had ever served with the water health program, even though we still had quite a few seniors and disabled who took advantage of water health. Moving on. All right, I turn it over to Lily. I'll lead on water health.
The total community actions LIHWAP service ran from October 2021 to April the 1st, 2023. We assisted over 1,429 households under the CAA program. That actually came out to be over $1 million. Then we have with the LIHWAP ARP program, 1,058 households, which we paid out about $794,000 over that. Now, the wonderful part of this completely was my favorite part, that 100% of the allocation was expended. The need was there. We were able to assist so many people. And also being that I was working in the water health program where I was very limited with that $200 payment once a year per household. And it was limited to who we could help. By having LIHWAP, it was amazing to be able to reach so many households and pay that large amount to the households that were in a great need for it. Next slide, please. Thank you. The keys to TCA service efficiency. We have a universal application process. It came after the pandemic. We had to find a way that we could still assist everyone coming through our doors, looking for all the different services that we needed. So the universal application provides required data for all agency programs. Also, the total access service model, staff is cross-trained to provide LIHWAP services and sequentially at the point of service. With that universal application, everyone comes in, fills the application, brings their documents, and we are able to provide LIHWAP, food pantry, many programs. My water health program, it has become wonderful to have that universal application to be able to reach everyone at that initial point of service when they walk in that door at our offices. So we do have a video to show if we could possibly do that at this time. This is my first time seeing this video.
Oh, I was born and raised in New Orleans. The water system and the water bills are ridiculous. I had like $500 bills or $400 bills, $300 bills, and I'm only one person. And I'm on a fixed income. Oh, Lord. I was wondering how I was going to pay them.
Total Community Action is the city's official anti-poverty agency, and our mission is to reduce poverty in New Orleans by providing opportunities, experiences, and services that help low-income individuals move to self-sufficiency.
Hi, this is Lily Rodriguez at TCAs. On a day-to-day basis, definitely our clientele can experience hardships with the utilities, with jobs. Do they have a job to go to? Do they have a full-time job? Do they have a job that is paying them enough to make ends meet? The water health program has been going on since 1994. But the household had to be either elderly or disabled. There were many people that we would have to say, I'm sorry, we can't help you.
We were only able to serve about 1,600 households, and it was a one-time $200 payment every 6 months. What's the average size of a family household bill? Maybe for a month in water.
The $200 that we were giving for the seniors and disabled sometimes could only pay a 1 month bill.
Total Community Action also provides the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program, LIHWAP. In our community, LIHWAP is called LIHWAP. But that federal program has provided us with enormous support.
This has allowed me to help so many families. With LIHWAP at this moment, we are now able to help a working mom. We can also help an individual who just lost their job. With LIHWAP, we are able to help 4 times the amount of households as before. LIHWAP took care of a lot of past bills that were just mounting, going higher and higher. If they have a large bill, the arrearages are large, we can bring them to the maximum number, which is the
$1,500.
Everybody should have the ability to have clean water in their house, clean running water, and not be afraid to lose their service.
Without LIHWAP, the city of New Orleans would have a whole lot of disconnected families. There would be many, many families that would not have access to water daily.
I thank God for TCA. They are phenomenal with your water bill. They help. When I say they help you real good.
The assistance of this federal program has kept people out of crisis one step into stability. Not stable, but one step into stability.
Hi.
Water is a common good. And until we begin to recognize that everyone should have access to clean and affordable water, I think we take that for granted, but everyone does not have access. But water actually is an essence of life like air, and therefore everyone should have access to clean, affordable, and safe water.
We want to thank the Office of Community Service for allowing us to participate in this, and record this video. And we want to share that we are committed to the One Water vision. We envision a future where all water is valued. Irrigation on a farm, water from the tap, storm water, and water flowing to water treatment plant. Water in all its forms is valuable, and our collective future depends on water. We are a community that is surrounded by water. We live with the threat of water in hurricanes and rains, but we, as an agency and a community, are really committed to living with water. And at this time, my colleague will talk about some of our partnerships around water safety and affordability.
I think through having great leadership and great vision of our CEO and president, Ms. Delma French, we've been really blessed to be involved in so many impactful partnerships. And so one of them is the U.S. Water Alliance Equity Network, in which she really helps shape the environment and provides the community a very special value. This is actually an affordable water and wastewater connection sustaining throughout the nation. We have learned so much being a part of this. As a member of the Water Network, we have lifted up and advanced some promising practices, really having the opportunity to sit at the table and learn from other communities about what they're doing to sustain affordable water practices. So it's really been a good thing. Also, our new relationship, National Energy and Utility Affordable Coalition, which is a broad base of coalition members, organized individuals dedicated to heightening the awareness, not only energy of low-income individual customers, but also it's a great public-private partnership. And as a board member, really having the opportunity to network with other water providers to understand and learn so many promising practices that they're doing in their communities. We've been able to bring some back here and be a part of them. The next slide also talks about one really important for not only us as a community action agency, but as a Head Start provider, our impacts through partnership with our lead service line collaborative. And this is really a collaborative that is focused on environmental justice and other national resource defense councils. And the key here is to really learn about the exposure of lead and the need to remove lead pipes from water systems. And so for us, one of the things that we're working in as part of this collaborative and being a partner with our Sewage and Water Board company, the Water Collaborative of Greater New Orleans, Civic Studios, Blue Conduit, because we know the importance of removing those lead pipes across the country. There's a move to remove lead pipes throughout the cities, but we know that the importance of moving lead pipes, not only from the city, but also from those homes of those children that we serve in our Head Start program. So it is very important, and that is one that we really are really involved in as a partnership.
And then finally, as Liz just talked about the lead line replacement work, for most people, the words Flint, Jackson, and Buffalo come to mind.
Yeah.
But to know that in most of our low-income communities where we have historic water systems, there is the prevalence of lead lines. And our work with this work is twofold, as my colleague said. It begins with educating our Head Start parents about the awareness and the dangers of lead, as well as taking an active part in making sure that the federal funds that are available for lead line removal are equitably accessible for our low-income families. And so that gets us back to our common goals and our common good. Water is a common good, and everyone should have access to clean, safe, and affordable water. And we are very supportive of any policy that will continue and support LIHWAP, but not at the expense of LIHWAP. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you to all of you. That video is amazing. Just gonna say that out loud. And I guess we do have a few moments for questions. I'm actually going to turn it over to Christina quickly, because I think there was a question that she wanted to answer live.
Right there.
Oh, there we go. I got you there.
Right, yes. So I've been going through the chat trying to answer some of the questions, and that was just the first one that I clicked on to answer live. Let me scroll back up and see what it was. So the question is, will federal language ever allow entities to pay the full utility bill, since vendors will disconnect the client if we only pay the water and not utility portion? So currently the authorizing language for LIHWAP is very specific, that the funds can only be used for water and wastewater services. We cannot extend that to cover costs for trash or other utilities. We do understand that bundled bills has been a challenge. And that water utilities, many of them don't want to separate the payments or accept partial payments. What we have allowed is for, in the case of bundled bills, if the administrator can identify the portion that's attributed to water, you can make that distinction and send that portion of the payment to the water utility. And so in some cases that has extended the acceptance where the water utility doesn't have to figure it out. We're also not asking on the back end, we have no jurisdiction over the way that the water utility accounts for that payment. So as long as the LIHWAP administrator is not paying more than what can be attributed to water, we do not require the water utility to apply that in any specific way, nor do we ask the administrator to ensure that the water utility has applied it in any specific way. So that's allowed some additional utilities to participate. However, we cannot extend the benefit to cover costs that aren't attributed to water.
Yeah. I think it looks like we're going to get a copy of the universal application, I believe. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Love that. For folks asking in the chat about the LIHWAP universal application. And I guess one question that we got was, and a couple, both Total and Cap Riverside answered this, I think, a little bit in their presentations, but it would be nice to hear from both agencies, like what have you found to be some successful strategies for getting providers to sign on to be a part of this program? I guess we can start with Monica and then move over to Total.
denied customers or customers that we've had to turn away. If you have a data tracking system, you can pull all the applications that you've denied specifically for that water company. And I do almost like a sales email to them and saying, we've had this many customers apply with these total amounts of bills that we could have paid if you had signed up. And I try to reassure that, we have a lot more funding available that we can assist additional customers and the sign up, and then provide all the information for sign up. But sometimes putting the money up front that they're missing out on is a big way to capture their attention to actually read the rest of the email.
Yeah, absolutely. Thelma or anyone from Total want to add anything to that?
Well, as we stated, we have one water provider, a public water provider, but we have had a very strong working relationship with them. And one of the, in fact, they invited us to the U.S. Water Alliance Water Equity Work, which is made up of partnerships of community organizations and water providers, both public and private water providers. And so through that work, we were a little ahead of the curve about LIHWAP, and they asked us to run all of our LIHWAP households. And what we did is, before LIHWAP was actually allocated to us, we tried to protect. We gave them the data of our LIHWAP household, and we attempted to protect those accounts that were at highest risk until we got our LIHWAP allocation, which made sure that there was no disruption in service. And so having that, that ongoing conversation with them helped us be able to protect a lot of our households, particularly our two priority populations, our elderly and households with children under 5. They did protect those accounts until we got our LIHWAP allocation.
Yeah, those partnerships are crucial. I guess last question, just in the last couple of minutes, I guess this is, again, more of a question for the two agencies, but as Christina and Rachel mentioned, this appropriation, the funds have to be obligated by the end of September and then spent by the end of this calendar year. And there aren't any additional funds in, any appropriations bills now. I know the president in his budget did have a slight increase for LIHWAP, and then the ability for states to use a small percentage of that money for water assistance services. But I guess my question is more like, what can agencies or other folks out in communities do to increase awareness of this program, or do some advocacy in their communities about the importance of providing water assistance?
Ryan, I want to jump in because our city is allocating out their ARPA funds, and the city council did call us about being the program administrator for an emergency for assistance in utilities. And because by the Treasury guidelines, our ARPA funds can serve families up to 300% of the poverty level, we are looking at that. And because there's a little political tension between the city council and the water board, we are trying to get the council to see the data to see how many people could really use some water assistance out of the ARPA fund. So my recommendation would be to my colleagues, if your community is looking at ARPA funding and looking for projects of community need, have that conversation with your board members who are elected officials. We are quite sure that our board members who sit on the city council advance that, because we're constantly educating them about need in our community and our services. And they invited us to the table. And so that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, it's so important to also focus on local and state advocacy when you're doing this work. Monica, anything to add?
Shout out to California, because we are going to have our own state funded LIHWAP 2.0 version starting after this one is done. So it does make a difference at the state and local level. And then I would just say find allies in places that we don't think of, because, for example, if a customer gets shut off for water, that's a housing violation. And so those that are advocating against homelessness and evictions, they can also be allies, strong allies for water.
Absolutely. That's amazing advice. So many of those interests are aligned, even if you don't necessarily know that right away. I guess we're about out of time. I just want to say there were a lot of questions, so we've copied them all down, and we're going to try to get answers out to some folks after the webinar. Also, the recording and slides will be out as well. I guess I'll just hand it over to Christina and Rachel in case there's anything you want to plug or any additional things that you want to make sure get mentioned live before we close out.
I just want to once again thank everyone for joining us today and encourage you all, if you're interested in having follow-up conversations with anyone from the OCS staff, to please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is on the website, and I'll drop my email into the chat as well. And if there's anything you want to continue to discuss with us, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. And yeah, NCAP is also available for if you have questions or want to chat about advocacy or other policy items. I can put my information in the chat as well. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to OCS and to CAP Riverside and Total Community Action. This was great. Thank you so much for sharing some of your promising practices, and we'll get that information out to all the attendees, and we'll see you all very soon. Thanks so much.